Along with Taoist, Officer is the newest character into the game. With two really cool abilities, it's definitely going to be a fan favorite. Hi, my name is MC, and today I'm going to help you to figure out which one is better for you, Gun Spin or Bounty Tag. Haha, cool intro, right? That was a month ago. It appears that I have mental illnesses and I can't help myself. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Gun Spin is very unique in its own ways. Basically, you spin your gun, hence the name Gun Spin, and you get a red weapon with a cost of 1 and a damage of 8. And if you keep hitting the ability button, you can actually stack this red weapon all the way till 6 shots with a single tap of an attack button, which is actually very high in burst damage, which we will get into very soon. The bullets are relatively accurate, and they also pierces whether you crit or not. Also, you can stack your ability up to a maximum of 3. With the basics out of the way, we can get into the pros. So the first pro, in my opinion, is the burst damage, as I just stated. Up to 7 shots with the combo hit buff of 8 damage, basically revolver hits, is absolutely amazing. It can terminate almost every single enemy, whether elite or not and badass or not, which is actually probably the highest burst damage we've ever seen in a standalone ability. This isn't a buff that buffs your weapons, this isn't a buff that buffs your attack speed, this is just basically another way to deal massive amounts of damage, which can really help you in those early games where you don't have a good weapon, or just generally don't like the weapon you're holding right now. With the cooldown being so low and it can stack to 3, you can basically make this your main weapon. You don't even need a weapon, you can do a badass no weapon run with this ability, although it's banned, but you get the point. This weapon has fast attack speed, a really good damage, very high crit, and also pierces no matter if you crit or not. This is basically the perfect weapon and you cannot ask for more. Yeah, I did went a little overboard on that, but it's a good weapon, you get me. The second pro, in my opinion, is just, it's very versatile. You know me, I love abilities that can stack. You have the freedom to only load 1 shot into the revolver and just unleash a quick attack that does 8 damage, which is actually very crazy. And you can also load your entire revolver and just barrage on your enemies. Loading up 6 shots actually takes some time because you can only stack up to 3 in your ability slot. But you don't have to wait for that annoying 10 seconds, you can just shoot the 3 you already loaded. When you see an enemy with like 8 health, you don't have to shoot 6 bullets all at once to him. You can just load 1 bullet and just ding his skull. Unlike, for example, Berserker's freestyle ability, you need to spend your entire ability to kill that one guy, which is just totally unorthodox. The freedom this ability gives you is definitely one of the biggest selling points of this ability. It can enhance your play experience, or just genuinely provide convenience. I can rant all day about how good stackable abilities are, but let's just move on to our next buff. This thing has probably the highest statue compatibility ever to exist within an ability. Timing's so sweet, it's good and all, but if you can use your ability 20 times in a second, you could use your statues whenever they are ready. Previously, I thought Werewolf was the best with statues, but it's giving me second thoughts on who I think statues are nice with. I really don't need to explain this point more. You guys will all get what I mean when you try this ability out with statues. The next pro is sort of a stretch, but Sonai is a game for fun, and you shouldn't be focusing on how good the ability actually is, but how fun the ability actually is. In my opinion, Gun Spin is probably the best feeling skill in the entire game, apart from probably dodge roll or something. The feeling of 7 crit hits disintegrating a really strong enemy is just super satisfying to me. and how you spin your gun, and how you reload your shots, and how it bursts out at incredible speeds. It's all just probably the most fun part about this ability. I really do favor skills that are really cool, or just generally has a great hit feel, if you know what I mean. That's why I loved Rage, and I also loved Idol, but this is just like the perfect combination between both these, except for its set red weapon. It's also good, so it doesn't matter. I'm having a mild stroke right now, and I hope you don't mind it. Also, up till this point, it's the only ability to have a special effect with skins, although this character has only been out for like 2 weeks. So yeah, it will change in the future, but it's cool now. And I also have an honorable mention of a buff, is that it gets buffed by buffs. I know I said buff 3 times in a row, but that doesn't matter. But, you know, bounty tag is sort of dependent on the weapon, so it gets buffed by buffs equally. But this ability is a standalone gun, which gets buffed by additional buffs, if you can understand what buffing things I'm saying. And that's why it's an honorable mention, because I didn't really want to include it as an actual buff. But it's a pro anyways. So with that honorable mention weird thing, I have concluded every single buff I think the gun spin have over bounty tag. And let's move on straight to bounty tag. Bounty tag seems complicated at first, but it becomes really simple once you go hands-on with the ability. I'll explain it very simply. Basically, you tag the nearest enemy with your ability. You can tell who's tagged because there's a giant red crosshair in the middle of them. When you tag an enemy, all your bullets that you shoot out from your gun or your staff or anything basically becomes homing missiles, and it just straight up goes seek the target. The seeking effect is somewhat slightly less than the magic little purple triangles, but it's a little bit more than, for example, the code. There is a chance for your bullets to come all the way back around after it already tagged an enemy and hit the enemy again, although it's actually quite rare and you need it to pierce, but it does happen sometimes. And when you upgrade the ability to max, every time you kill the tagged enemy, it drops anywhere from 1 to 3 coins. Slightly longer explanation, but it doesn't affect us from actually making this comparison, so let's get right into it with pro number 1. Pro number 1, massive weapon buffs. You don't get how much the homing effect buffs your weapons, especially shotguns. The one thing about shotguns is that it has a spread, and once the bullets travel to a certain distance, it basically becomes a wide shot, and it just doesn't do a lot of damage. But when you have the homing effect, oh, you bet every single shotgun's gonna turn into a powerhouse and straight up just knock the enemy into orbit. This is especially helpful when you're dealing with bosses, since all your wasted shots just won't go anywhere. But with this ability, just imagine every single one of those magic staff shots lands on the boss. That's gonna make the damage output literally possibly the best damage output in the entire game. Another way to put it, just imagine every single shotgun acting like the missile launcher. The missile launcher is probably like the best weapon in the entire game. That was a joke. I don't think the missile launcher is the best weapon in the entire game, but you get my point. Also, you might be thinking, oh, I don't use shotguns, so this buff is basically useless for me. No, the buff is, although not as large, but still a substantial amount for any weapon except for melee. Your normal assault rifle has too much spread. Worry not, because every single weapon hit is just gonna land on the enemy. Think your sniper rifle bullet travels too slow, it's not like the Soul Calibur. Worry not, wham bam slam clam, the enemy's dead in 1,000 miles. The focus damage is actually really insane, and I just don't have any better explanation. The second pro only suffices when you have the ability to max, but it helps you financially achieve much more things. I'm not suggesting that you play like this, but within like easier levels, you can basically bounty tag every single enemy and get like an absurd amount of coins. I've achieved 800 coins already within the end of 1.5 in badass mode. That's actually crazy. If your playstyle is right, and if you have the time and effort to just try and kill every single enemy with bounty tag, you basically won't even need to have 50% off in stores buff. Not like this is a substantial buff that affects your gameplay or anything, but you know, you have all those banks. You could probably just buy more health pods and buy more energy pods so you can spend more and feel good to play the game more. Also forgot to mention, the ability is fairly fast. After you kill an enemy, the ability will be ready in 1 or 2 seconds, so you don't have to worry about spending a whole eternity on killing mobs in the first level just to get 200 coins. The third pro is also a stretch, but I mean, it is technically a pro. Basically, this ability is much safer. Gun spin is cool and all, but you still have to approach your enemy to shoot them with like revolver rounds. But with this ability, you don't have to poke your head out and tag the enemy. Then you can hide behind walls and let the homing bullets do all your work. I know there are some certain types of players that just lay in the corner and just spam me all the time, but this just seems like the perfect ability for them. Tag an enemy, hide behind cover, shoot, kill them, tag another enemy, hide behind cover, and shoot them again. This is basically a really easy way to cheese badass mode. It might take like literal centuries, and it's also certainly not my playstyle, but it works, and it works really well. Also, a quick honorable mentions is that this ability has just much more potential than Gun Spin. Gun Spin is simple. It's just a revolver that you can load how many shots you want to and shoot it at the enemy. It doesn't change. The only thing you can do with it is basically increasing the damage by just a little bit, or stacking the ability amount to like 4. But with this ability, it's basically all weapon dependent. If you have a weapon that is very strong or can be buffed really well, this ability can just bring out the best in them. For example, if you have a shotgun with a really wide spread, for example, I don't know, the wizard staff, it could basically make this weapon miles better than the original version. That's sort of the only downside for Gun Spin being just a standalone ability. There's no conjunction between the ability and your current favorite weapon. Although, I mean, Gun Spin is fun, it is a good weapon, but you either have to choose between your main weapon or Gun Spin's revolver. But with this ability, you don't have to choose, basically, because it buffs your main weapon and it'll make it a lot better. That about wraps up every single pro for both Gun Spin and Bounty Tag. So you know what time it is. Let's jump to the conclusion. Keep in mind that this is purely my opinion. I'm here to educate you on choosing your ability to use, not to tell you a straight fact that this ability is better than the other. I'll make this short and simple. It depends. Gun Spin is better when dealing with normal rooms, and Bounty Tag is just miles better than Gun Spin when dealing with bosses. If you're just playing normal mode, or if you're just playing normal badass, I recommend you go with the Gun Spin, because you know, the burst damage is high, the versatility is nice, it also does a lot of damage, so it's probably one of the nicest abilities for normal mode and just normal rooms in general. But I can't stress this enough, Bounty Tag is just pure madness against bosses. I put the clip in the beginning. It was absolutely destroying Marcolin Leader with, you know, the wizard staff. It just does so much damage with shotguns. It makes them basically the best class weapons in the entire game. If you just purely want an opinion, or just purely want to know who's better in my opinion, I would say go for Gun Spin. If you can master it, it's definitely a better ability than Bounty Tag. But Bounty Tag and Gun Spin are equally as fun, although Gunspin probably has better feels to it, but it's equally as fun, and I recommend you pick up either of these abilities because, you know, the officer's free. Both of the abilities are free. It's basically just probably the best character in the entire game. That was an exaggerator. Please don't hunt me down, rogue mains. So that shall do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Goodbye. Together.